Hey friends, I'm Dustin Davis, and I'll update you on everything happening in Detroit. The Detroit Lions entered the 2025 offseason carrying the weight of championship expectations and the scars of another playoff disappointment. Despite assembling one of the league's most talented rosters and showcasing an explosive offense, the franchise found itself confronting familiar questions about depth, development, and difficult personnel decisions. Behind the scenes, coaching staff and front office executives have been quietly evaluating every position group, weighing potential moves that could either solidify their championship aspirations or expose critical vulnerabilities. The coming weeks will determine whether Detroit front office remains committed to internal development or pivots towards external solutions that could reshape their roster construction. The decisions they make now will either reinforce their foundation or expose the cracks that prevent championship-caliber teams from reaching their ultimate goal. But these championship aspirations start with getting the basics right, like finding the right backup quarterback. Let's check out everything that's happening in Detroit. Before we continue, may I ask for your support? If you like what we're sharing, just take a second to hit that like button. It really helps us. Thank you. Detroit's Lions began their summer campaign featuring an open battle for the backup quarterback position, yet a distinct frontrunner has now materialized in seasoned veteran Kyle Allen. This development might force the franchise into confronting a significant choice regarding former third-round selection Hendon Hooker. While Detroit could commit substantial resources supporting Jared Goff and maintain 3 signal callers on their primary roster, one expert suggests Hooker would serve better as trade material. The situation has become increasingly clear as preseason action has unfolded. Mike Payton from A to Z Sports observed that the Hendon Hooker experiment is failing to materialize for Detroit's Lions since the former Tennessee signal caller has faltered during preseason exhibitions and been surpassed by veteran Allen's performance. Currently, as we approach training camp's conclusion and preseason's finale, Detroit appears more like a franchise prepared to release Hooker and maintain 2 quarterbacks rather than a squad willing to retain him hoping he develops while occupying a roster position. Detroit isn't required to release him, however. Multiple franchises exist that would likely exchange for his services. The trade market for quarterbacks remains active, and Payton recommended the New Orleans Saints as that potential franchise. New Orleans faces an uncertain quarterback landscape following Derek Carr's retirement and requires another arm competing for the starting position. Tyler Shaw might represent their future prospect, yet we understand that Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener certainly aren't. Both have faltered during regular season opportunities they've received. Therefore, New Orleans might seek another individual who can arrive and possess an opportunity securing the backup position or maintaining a practice squad role. Hooker would gain from receiving greater opportunity in New Orleans than he'd receive in Detroit. Payton recommended Detroit could suggest a direct exchange, trading Hooker for defensive tackle Christian Boyd. This potential swap would address multiple needs for both franchises while providing Hooker with a fresh opportunity to develop his professional career. The proposed trade makes considerable sense from Detroit's perspective, as Payton mentioned that Boyd has attracted Detroit's attention, scheduling a visit with Detroit before the 2024 NFL Draft. New Orleans ultimately selected Boyd during the 6th round last season, yet he has descended the depth chart since the franchise signed Davon Godchaux and rookie Omari Thomas. Detroit could utilize assistance on their defensive line's interior with Aleem McNeil, Mekhi Wingo, and Levi Onwuzurike, all anticipated to miss considerable time. Boyd isn't a starter in Detroit, yet he possesses superior chances at entering the rotation for a substantial season portion in Detroit than he maintains in New Orleans. Therefore, it's worthwhile attempting for Detroit. Although it remains unclear whether Detroit would willingly abandon Hooker, the franchise has demonstrated confidence in Allen and withheld granting the backup position to their former third-round selection. While Detroit weighs their quarterback options, similar tough decisions are brewing in their backfield depth chart. Detroit's Lions lack significant drama within their backfield hierarchy, returning featuring one of football's finest running back tandems alongside a pair of reliable backups. However, the franchise might confront a challenging choice at the depth chart's bottom, featuring an anticipated competition for the final position. One insider believes a former college standout might receive the unfavorable outcome. Detroit possesses 2 of the league's most adaptable and dynamic running backs in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, with both surpassing 1,000 all-purpose yards during 2024.
The franchise also maintains trusted Craig Reynolds as third string, leaving 3 players competing for the 4th and final roster position. Jeff Risdon from USA Today's Lions Wire noted that second-year running back Sione Vaki seems leading the competition, with former college star and UFL standout Jacob Saylors positioned just beneath the selection threshold. This position belongs to Sione Vaki until circumstances prove otherwise, but Vaki missing various camp portions and the Falcons' preseason contest with different ailments has hindered his progress. UFL transplant Jacob Saylors has excelled during camp and appeared solid on special teams, which represents Vaki's primary specialty. Saylors' background makes his current predicament particularly compelling. He established his reputation through 5 seasons with East Tennessee State, concluding his college tenure with 3,851 rushing yards, 6,058 all-purpose yards, and 33 rushing touchdowns. He couldn't secure an NFL roster position after college, yet he found opportunity with the UFL St. Louis Battlehawks, where he finished second league-wide with 599 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. Despite this impressive resume, Saylors continues struggling, with Risdon indicating he's merely hoping for practice squad placement currently. This isn't truly a competition as much as Saylors and newcomer Deion Jackson competing for the presumed practice squad position behind the top 4. They remain closer to Vaki offensively than Vaki stands to third-string running back Craig Reynolds, nevertheless. The determining element for the final running back position might depend on special teams contribution. Detroit expects the roster's bottom contributors to participate in return units, a responsibility Vaki embraced during his 2024 rookie campaign.
These personnel decisions at skill positions occur simultaneously with Detroit's pursuit of defensive reinforcements. Detroit's Lions must earnestly contemplate acquiring at least one additional capable edge rusher this offseason, potentially multiple, a reality not overlooked by Las Vegas oddsmakers. Ian Rappaport from NFL Network reported Sunday, August 17th, that Cincinnati's Bengals have restarted trade conversations regarding All-Pro edge rusher and current NFL sack champion Trey Hendrickson. With contract negotiations at a standstill, Cincinnati is entertaining trade proposals for perennial Pro Bowler Trey Hendrickson, Rappaport posted to X Sunday afternoon. It remains uncertain if the NFL sack leader will be competing elsewhere in 2025, and a trade will present a genuine challenge, but time will tell. Shortly after that report, DraftKings Sportsbook released odds on Hendrickson's next franchise, essentially identifying his most probable trade destinations beyond Cincinnati. Cincinnati remained an overwhelming favorite to retain Hendrickson at -450. Following that, however, came Carolina's Panthers at +500 and Detroit at +800, making those organizations the 2 betting favorites to acquire Hendrickson if Cincinnati does indeed trade him. Completing the top trade destinations based on odds were Indianapolis's Colts and Green Bay's Packers at +1,000 each, and Los Angeles's Chargers and Arizona's Cardinals each at +1,400. Contract complications create trade opportunities. Jordan Schultz from Fox Sports explained the primary reason Cincinnati remains the heavy favorite to retain Hendrickson, even despite the prolonged negotiation conflict and the initial report from Rappaport Sunday that Cincinnati is actively fielding calls from multiple trade suitors. Carolina, Cleveland Browns, and Indianapolis are among the franchises that have demonstrated interest in trading for Cincinnati's All-Pro Trey Hendrickson, per multiple sources. An in-division and in-state trade is highly improbable, and any deal will be difficult regardless. Cincinnati is believed to desire an impact player, or 2, plus a draft pick in return. Cincinnati wants to retain Trey Hendrickson, and Hendrickson himself desires to remain in Cincinnati and conclude his career there, but talks keep hitting a wall, I'm told. There was some thought that Hendrickson reporting to camp would help advance things forward, but the same contract issues remain unresolved. The stalemate creates opportunities for teams like Detroit that possess both the financial flexibility and immediate need for pass rush production. Schultz's reporting and DraftKings odds appear to establish both Carolina and Indianapolis as serious contenders for Hendrickson, if Cincinnati does indeed trade him. Detroit's pass rush needs align with available talent. Detroit is a logical destination alongside those 3 organizations given how much the franchise struggled to rush the passer last season, particularly after Aiden Hutchinson broke his leg in Week 5.
The injury exposed Detroit's lack of depth at the position and highlighted the need for additional investment in pass rush capabilities. Detroit traded with Cleveland for defensive end Zadarius Smith ahead of the last year's deadline, and the front office has indicated the franchise could still reunite Smith in free agency. Zadarius has expectations. The franchise has expectations. So sometimes it takes a while for those things to get on the same page, especially with a guy that's been in the league as long as he has. I'm not saying that he doesn't want to be in training camp, but if he misses some time, there's obviously still interest there, and we've been keeping in touch. Even if Detroit brings Smith back, Hendrickson will remain a viable trade target. He will turn 31 years old during the upcoming season and earn $21 million in 2025. Detroit currently has nearly $48 million in available cap space, providing the financial flexibility necessary to accommodate Hendrickson's contract while maintaining room for future extensions of their core players. The financial realities of pursuing a player like Hendrickson have led analysts to explore more affordable alternatives. Detroit's Lions will face enormous expectations for themselves during the 2025 NFL season. Detroit is a popular regression candidate, largely because they won 15 games last year and lost both coordinators this offseason. But that will not stop Dan Campbell's Grit Warriors from giving it everything they have this fall. Final roster cuts are not too far away, as the regular season is just around the corner. Most NFL teams are thinking about how they'll get their roster down to their best 53 players. But Detroit should still be in attack mode. Detroit could still use some depth on their defensive line, both at defensive tackle and edge rusher. Detroit has been connected to Trey Hendrickson all offseason, but that trade is unlikely to happen. Detroit has to conserve their cap space to pay their existing players, including Aiden Hutchinson. But are there any defensive players that Detroit can afford? And if so, could Detroit acquire them before the regular season begins? One potential solution involves targeting Baltimore's Odafe Oweh, who represents a more financially manageable option while still providing significant pass rush upside. Before analyzing the potential fit, consider the terms of this hypothetical trade scenario. Detroit receives edge Odafe Oweh, 2026 7th-round pick. Baltimore receives 2026 4th-round pick and 2026 6th-round pick. In this scenario, Detroit goes out and gets another edge rusher by prying Oweh away from Baltimore in exchange for a draft pick and a pick swap. The concept has gained support from multiple analysts. Mike Payne from A to Z Sports suggested Detroit acquire Oweh back in May. This isn't the first time I've brought this one up. Oweh was in trade rumors right before the 2025 NFL Draft. The former 31st overall pick has been pretty decent for Baltimore, but maybe not as good as they'd hoped he'd be. He has not been a full-time starter for them since they drafted him in 2021. Payne noted the addition of edge rusher Mike Green in Baltimore makes Oweh expendable, especially because he's on an expiring contract, creating urgency for Baltimore to extract value rather than lose him for nothing in free agency. Essentially, Payne argues that Baltimore has a chance to get some future draft capital out of Oweh. That could make the trade possible. Here's a chance for Baltimore to get something for him. In Detroit, Oweh would be a starter for Detroit. If he performs well, Detroit could work out a deal for him. If he doesn't, they don't have to. The logic makes sense from Detroit's perspective. Oweh would immediately become a starter in Detroit, though he would have to earn the job first through training camp and preseason competition. Even if Oweh only played a situational role with Detroit, the extra juice he would add to their pass rush would be incredibly important. For this trade to become a reality, Baltimore would have to be confident in their depth at edge rusher. Simply put, Detroit just needs more bodies at edge rusher. Oweh would be an excellent addition, especially because he managed 10 sacks in 2024, demonstrating the production capability that Detroit desperately needs. If Detroit doesn't pull off a trade for Oweh or another edge rusher, reuniting with Zadarius Smith becomes even more critical. Either way, Detroit needs to add more bodies before depth on defense becomes an issue again in 2025. The edge rusher situation presents perhaps the most intriguing dilemma. Would you rather see Detroit make a splash move for Trey Hendrickson's elite production, knowing it costs significant draft capital and salary cap space? Or does the more affordable Oweh trade represent better value, allowing Detroit to address depth without compromising future flexibility? Leave it in the comments. Before you go, hit that like and subscribe button, be part of our community, and stay updated. Let's keep Lions strong together. Catch you in the next one.